Hey, that was pretty good. The Raptors defeat the Milwaukee Bucks 130 to 111. A pretty hapless performance from the Bucks, a pretty inspiring performance from the Raptors. You have huge games from Pascal Siakam, huge game from Scottie Barnes, which has been every game so far this season, and just like masterful stuff from Dennis and Jakob in like Jakob isn't gonna, light the scoreboard on fire with scoring, but is screening. He was carving out tons of space for everyone today. OG doesn't miss a shot. The Raptors defense as a whole does a really good job against these Bucks. And at the end of this game, you can look at the numbers and say this is one of the most impressive, as far as like efficiency goes, transition games many of us will watch this whole season, if not the most impressive from the Raptors' point of view. Just incredibly efficient. And for the first time this season, the Raptors, they eclipse last year's half-court average in points per play. I'll bring up the final stats. The Raptors, they finish at 102.3 points per 100 possessions in the half court. Hell yeah. That's all anybody's really been waiting for, is to see the Raptors kind of make things work in the half court. Yes, they shot the three really well. That was super nice to see. They clear 40% for the third time this season, I think. And I mean, like, hell yeah. They had their best offensive rebounding game. Like I said before, they by the end of the game almost tripled the Bucks in efficiency and transition scoring. So just to put those numbers into context, the Bucks are scoring 0.76 points per 100 transition possessions. That's terrible, horrible. We'll get into why that was happening. And the Raptors, 185.7. That's almost like a layup every time, a made layup every time. Really impressive efficiency. One of the best performances we'll ever see. I'm Samson Folk. This is the Raptors Reaction Podcast. Here to join me, oh my guy, my dear pal, Trevon Heath. How you doing, Trey? How you feeling after that one?
I'm good. Like after the Portland game, I was like this close from losing my smile, but then they brought me right back in,
The
shot the lights up.
smile.
I'm happy. Big win, big win.
Okay, we haven't heard that much from you about Scottie since the season started. Not only do we have a big Scottie game, not only do we have the get off me move he pulled off on the same one he did to Kevin Durant. I'm sure people remember in clutch time. Kevin Durant started sliding over. He said, "Get off me." Finished with a dunk. This one on Giannis finishes with a layup. He gave Giannis the Giannis. See you later. How do you feel about him right now? Scottie, the star boy.
This is probably like the first 5 games is probably like a 90 percentile plus outcome that anyone would be expecting. And I think the really promising thing is that there isn't a stat where you look at it like, oh, like this isn't super sustainable. Although he's shooting the three probably at a higher clip than you think over a long period of time.
He's slinging it, man.
Yeah, but heading into the game, he was still shooting 30.33 throughout further season. So that isn't like he isn't shooting at a 40% clip. That might go down to like 31%. But he's getting to the paint when given opportunity. He's pushing the ball when he gets the rebound. And I think the beautiful thing is that he is really invested in punishing anyone who's smaller than him when given the opportunity. That's led for him. For him, it's allowed him to get easy opportunities. His scoring has become in bunches, and he's kind of sleepwalking into 20 points every night, which is cool now. It's kind of feeling normal, so I'm super excited.
This was maybe the best game to illustrate
Yeah.
all of the Raptors' greatest strengths. You see, I'll try and list them. You let me know if I miss any, and I'll let you know if you have any interesting ones coming back, I suppose. But you have Pascal dominating the half court in a way that we're probably not really going to see again.
Yeah.
Having Pascal go 5 for 8 from downtown, almost strictly on just running like horns, pick and roll, having him flare out and catch above the break and can it. Like, this is a play you'd run for like Klay Thompson. Pascal was gunning an unbelievable amount tonight.
Yeah.
If he can do that, the offense doesn't have that much to worry about if he's that type of shooter. He isn't, but for tonight he was. You had low post touches where the Bucks were really lazy doubling, really lazy rotating at the back end, and the Raptors found open threes. You had OG Anunoby not the highest volume, but just like uber efficiency, something that a lot of people are comfortable with in his role. You have OG, suppressing shot attempts from another star. You have Scottie Barnes sleepwalking to 20, massive on the glass. You have Poeltl finishing everything in the lane. And my goodness, you have Dennis Schroder being played at the point of attack with
Yeah.
lock and trail defense. And the Raptors are also setting those screens really high. So he has a bunch of space to get wide, open up the middle of the paint for Jakob as a roller. Like, that was about as good as anybody could hope for from this game. Oh, and also, you have in the first half, Pascal, Jakob, Grady, Gary, and Dennis. They score 17 points across 5 minutes as a transitional bench lineup. That's what you wanted it to be. The Bucks, I have like almost nothing good to say about them. Giannis was uncharacteristically terrible. My goodness, Dame was really bad. Brook Lopez looked like he didn't care about anything at all. This Bucks team is a lot better than this, but you play who's in front of you. And the Raptors, as far as strength of schedule, 40 games into the season, this is going to look like a game that they earned. And so, like, hell yeah, they did their thing. Am I missing anything?
I think it was good to see Otto in the lineup. Just like having a consistent shooter who also like maintains their size just allows them to have tenable, like I won't say tenable, have respectable half court offense. Jalen struggled through the first 3 or 4 games. He didn't play today, and you would think with Precious being out, they would really struggle in those small ball lineups where you saw Scottie was at the 5 in a lot of those possessions, but they were grabbing the ball and pushing the pace to a point where the Bucks were super uncomfortable. And he held his own on the glass with Brook and Giannis. So I'm looking forward to see more Scottie small ball 5 because I think it's more effective than I thought it would be heading into the season.
So a really fun number. We talked about it on the live podcast, basically. The big one that we did where, big shout out to the Raptors Republic and all the people who came out, but the Raptors pushed on almost 50% of the Timberwolves misses. That's how they kept their offense alive despite having a terrible half-court game. In this game, the Raptors pushed on 31% of the Bucks misses. That's not like a crazy high frequency, but against the Bucks, a big team who does like to get back, well, maybe not this season, but historically, I mean, the transition defense has been a mess this season. The Raptors, their points per play off of missed shots from the Bucks, 2. That is insane. The Raptors, like, if the Bucks missed, the Raptors came down on the other end, got early offense, whether it was Pascal finding like something to do in early work, carve out a post up. If it was Scottie finding a seam to take it all the way to the rim, this is a big reason why he's sleepwalking to 20 points, right? Is always being able to identify off a live dribble. Is there a lane for me to kind of exploit and get all the way there? And then also shooting, taking a big step from 3, which is really nice. It's just like, damn, things are going well. And then also you just have Schroder shooting the hell out of the ball. You have the terrible point of attack defense from the Bucks, especially like with some of those step up screens where they don't get to play at the level that they want to. Like the Bucks, sure, they made a little bit of a change where they started playing deeper drop, especially after, they play a little bit too high. Dennis turns the corner because a guy like Dame is dying on every screen. Shooter gets downhill, gets wide, easy layup for Jakob on the other side of those things. And like, sheesh, man, they beat the brakes off this team. And another thing, they rebounded a lot of their own misses. In the half court, they rebounded 44% of their own misses. I know, I'm not typically like the stats reading them off guy. I'm more of an X's and O's guy, but the stats are very compelling in this game. So just like super happy with that performance, man.
I know like Drew Holiday's not there anymore, but they got to the rim far more than I expected in this game. And you saw like when there's actual rotations happening, there's free buckets for Jakob. He played a lot better. He's able to crash the glass a lot better because now Brook and Giannis are having to deal with actual rim pressure. And when you're hitting shots, it bodes really well. The Bucks had to make some adjustments. So I think Grady's jumper is going to positively regressed. He's been an elite shooter his entire life. If you have guys like Otto in the lineup as well, and he can maintain his health, and some of our other guys like Pascal, OG, their shot positively regressing, and maybe not this night, but an average type of night for them is a 36 to 37 for OG's side from the three. That allows you to actually create rotations, because what you saw in the Portland game is that they're driving and passing without actually creating any movement.
Portland's defense was way better than the Bucks defense tonight. You know what's crazy? Brook played less than 17 minutes. Giannis less than 28.
Yeah.
Middleton like 17. I know he's on a minutes restriction thing, but we're mostly playing, after really stepping out to that huge lead, you're mostly playing the Bucks bench. And the Bucks bench had a much higher compete level than a lot of their starters, for one.
Yeah.
But the Raptors just completely cut apart predominantly Malik Beasley and Damian Lillard, who had no idea whether it was Dame or Beasley to kind of stick at the point of attack, dying on screens, super sloppy in trail positions, not rotating properly if they're sending guys to kind of block off the lane. I'm really, really disappointed with the game we got out of the Bucks tonight. This was such an easy performance for the Raptors. Like, yes, the shooting was really hot for stretches, and we've seen the Raptors like start out games 8 of 8 from 3 and lose. They start out really hot in this game. They got the volume from the guys who they don't always get the volume and efficiency from. Pascal 5 of 8 from 3. Scottie 4 of 6 from 3. These things are not always something you can count on, certainly. And the fact that they only got 1 3-point attempt from OG is a reflection of how they got a lot of their shots.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the transition, which we talked about. Like, my God, man, having OG shoot 100% from the field is not really a reflection of half-court offense. It's like, oh, OG was getting a lot of dunks out on the break. And Pascal shooting almost 70% in this game. You know, Scottie 8 of 16, because Scottie actually in this game, a lot of those end of shot clock possessions come to him. It's like, okay, let me see if I try and create something out of this. It's just very impressed. The Raptors, geez, man. Like, you look at 56% across the whole game, super impressive. Barely even needed to get to the line. This was a fast game. I mean, I'm impressed. I know, like, people only complain about free throw numbers when the game is close and you're like, what the hell? But the Raptors went to the line, I think, 14 times. The Bucks, 38. And nobody cares about that discrepancy because the Raptors just made every shot in transition. They made every shot after pushing off of, live rebounds. Yeah. And they shot well from 3. It was a super fun game.
There's not much to take away other than the vibes are good. Hitting shots are really fun. I think an interesting nugget, and you kind of seen it throughout the entire season so far, is that most teams just don't simply have the wing size to match up with a Pascal Scottie type duo. And the best advantages we've seen is when they throw the ball into the low post. Even if you don't have the requisite shooting, it forces a rotation just because Scottie's getting 2 or 3 bumps and getting to the rim. Do you think that's going to be a bigger focus into the offense, being that Scottie's a great passer out of those? Or is that just some modicum of like that's all they have right now?
Well, to be honest, the Raptors in this game, what was it, like 60, 70% of their made threes came from Pascal and Scottie anyway. Yeah. Most of the Raptors threes in this game came after offensive rebounds, or they came as a result of the Raptors bring the ball up the floor. The possession that they started the game off with, where Pascal walked it up, they tried to initiate a horn set. The Bucks just fronted it, and then Pascal just started dribbling again after he picked it up. I was like, oh, good Lord, man, what are we doing? But then Pascal's not the trigger man anymore. He's the guy. He's the top horn on the left side. They just run pick and roll with him. He slips out. It's a disguised flare from Poeltl. He's catching and making a 3. I don't know if they can bet on that all the time. We've seen it a little bit, and we saw a variation of it tonight, right, where Pascal got that inverted Euro and hit that layup, I think, over Portis. It was after he came off a flare, went downhill, and that's because the corner was empty on the one side. So not technically a horn set because both corners have to be filled. But the Raptors tweaking some stuff. But honestly, the 3-point shooting helps a ton, and having Dame and Beasley guarding Schroder helps a ton. Like, there was that one play, It ended up being a 2-pointer,
Yeah.
but Schroder hit the corner 2-pointer, had his toe on the line, where Pascal was at the 45, not even really in a dangerous position. And Malik Beasley came over to double, and Schroder just filtered to the corner, and Beasley lost him.
Yeah.
Was like, oh, where'd he go? Where'd he go? You can see him, like when they did the slow-mo, he didn't know where he was. And then Pascal's just like, okay, let me give the ball to Schroder, who's wide open. I couldn't believe how wide open he was, just filtering over there. The guard defense on the Bucks, I gotta say, to go to Drew to this, this is not the Bucks of old, man. Like, they're obviously opening game for the Bucks, Dame goes nuts, right? Like, that was also a thing that confused me. The Bucks are just not trying to run that much pick and roll with Damian Lillard. Oh, like, and don't get me wrong, Dennis did an awesome job burning clock, pushing them, making them reject and try and rescreen, and like I'll do all that kind of stuff. And like Dennis is really good at doing the step around screens or getting that arm in there and kind of like sliming his way through. They hardly ran a thing for Dame. Why did you trade for him?
No, it's odd because you assume that the offense was going to run through Dame. We're going to use Giannis as a screener a lot more, put him in more 2-on-1 situations, and he's just going to thrash the NBA. It looks like they're making Giannis still the hub, and they're making Dame play around him, sort of like he's like, I said it in our chat, like he's Jameer Nelson of Dame's Jameer Nelson, and
the
Giannis
one
is the big, which is
possession insane. They spent 9 seconds. 9 seconds without moving the ball, trying to establish Giannis on not even the low block, the mid post. They couldn't get the ball into him. Eventually, Giannis, swim move, spin. They lobbed it off the backboard. Giannis corrals it. He gets fouled going up, or on the floor, actually. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching? What are we doing here? And if Chris Boucher and Malachi Flynn and Grady Dick, those players can link up for Malachi runs a pick and roll, the Bucks blitz the pick and roll, short roll pass to Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher draws the tag. Grady Dick times his cut perfectly. You get a man's jam from the blonde Bob. Okay. The Bucks didn't make one of those plays, and they have Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. What are we doing here, man? I get it to some degree. This is one of the worst games the Bucks are going to play this year. Like the Raptors did run into that Bucks team. They ran into that Bucks team, man. But also, even still, what the hell? It was so feckless. Like a Middle Ages word for someone who just has nothing going on. Like something you'd hear, like, the term fail son?
Yes.
It's like, you fail, son. You are the feckless child of a tyrant. Like, the empire will burn under your hands. Yeah. What are we doing with this offense? What is the point of having good players if you're not going to put them in positions to succeed? Nobody on the Bucks tonight was put in a position to succeed, especially like what you're going to make Giannis post-ups the hub currently when the Raptors are one of the best teams over the past 5 years at fronting post-up, burning clock to post-ups, and shading to post-ups. Like, it's no wonder Giannis, and I know somebody commented earlier, I can't remember who their name was, but they pointed out that Giannis has been bad to start the season. NBA wide writer Joe Wolfond has said as much, and he watches a ton of it. I've only seen 2 Giannis games to this point, and he was bad in the first one. But this game does not define the Bucks. It doesn't define the Raptors either. But I left this game feeling quite puzzled about what's happening in Milwaukee.
No, it's super odd. Heading into the season when they said, you know what, Malik Beasley, we're calling his number. He's gonna get the best player ever. Now I was like, that's strange. But when you look at their actual roster, they have no other choice. And Dame was dying on screens every single play. The possession where they bring Dame back out, screen him again, and Dennis walks into the lane and gets a layup is ridiculous.
The best defense Malik has played was on Scottie Pippen, man. Come on. What are we doing, man? So They obviously, I'm going to assume, will have a trade deadline edition.
Yeah, of course.
We've seen a lot of teams with top end talent add. We have one comment from Jordan Brown Burton who says losing Drew and Javon Carter will sting. Hey, amen, brother. You know exactly what you're talking about. And we have a paid comment. We always appreciate the paid comments. Thank you for donating to the show. From Ali Dez says the chemistry between Jakob and Schroder is great. Bang on.
Yep.
That one pass, oh my God. You know that Michael Irvin, that num,
Yes.
num, 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 and he says like, and then with the one-handed stab for the grab. That was like Schroder. He's got that 6'9" wingspan. He's got those big hands. He lays that thing out there and then whew, just tosses it behind his head. Jakob's coming down the middle. Even Siakam hit Jakob on the roll a couple times. So this is like this game. I can't believe how bad the Bucks defense was. Given the personnel, I can't believe that, man. But they're like not much to take away from this game, except that the Raptors played their best game of the season. You took a really hard matchup in Giannis Antetokounmpo and 3 words, OG Anunoby, threw him on him. Not only that, but OG with that lower shot volume, he was also playing above the break a lot. He's the first guy back on defense. The Bucks having just a putrid, terrible night in transition. Yeah. A lot of that, there's a heavy correlation to the guy back there isn't like Gary, who is stationed above the break a lot. It's OG. People know there's a bit of a difference there as far as like, okay, how do I navigate the guy standing in front of me? It's tough. And then, yeah, go ahead.
It's off. It's odd. One thing I think we didn't mention, I know the box score shows that Grady didn't shoot the ball well. He played fantastic. All the little things that you would want from a rookie in order to earn minutes, he's excelling at them. It's the team defense where he rotates, blocks, he stops penetration, then peels out and then defends the actual three. It's him attacking space when they do gain an advantage, maintaining that advantage, hitting the open man, trying to score in the lane. A lot of those are going to convert later in the season, in year 2, year 3, when he's gains more actual weight. And a shooter who's that good is going to start hitting shots. The fact that he's been able to sort of steal that rotation spot, play with the starters and be a positive force, like bodes really well in the pick, and him scaling towards the end of the season to maybe even starting or being in closing lineups for the team. So I'm super impressed with how he played and how he's been able to like maintain on the defensive end.
So there's a bit of a parallel here, not in how they actually play, but just being able to implement themselves.
Yeah.
Scottie, when he came into the league, right, the expectations, I think roundly was like people thought definitely below 10 points per game in his rookie season. He was considered like a flat defensive prospect and an elite passer, not somebody who's going to, score a bunch. He obviously had 15.3 points per game in his rookie season. And a lot of that was because Scottie did such a good job implementing himself in all of the kind of like and ha parts of the game. Like he's a great finisher, yes, when other people create for him, but also like taking advantage of everything in transition, making timely cuts, eating on the offensive glass. That's how he juiced his numbers. Grady, if you believe in the shot, you have to be super impressed. Like, how did this guy come in and get 8 3-point attempts up in 21 minutes? How has his 3-point attempts been so much? And it's like he's not being gifted shots. He's running around like a whirling dervish trying to get to spots on the floor, trying to create not only space for his teammates as he cuts and fills and drags defenders because he can, because his reputation precedes him, but also when it's not 1 for 8, when it's a game where it was like 4 of 5, 4 of 6 from downtown, those games will come. I look at that volume, and even though it's 2 of 10, I don't want to gas it too much because it is 2 of 10.
Yeah.
But you look at that volume, I think you should be like super, super encouraged. And you get your first dunk. It's nice to get that first dunk in there. And he took a charge.
He did. Very, very Carl Lowry-esque. And Lewis pointed this out before. The possession before that, and one, he reaches in. With Giannis, that's not the ideal defense. The next possession he goes, he gets a charge. It's those little things that are going to be able to let him play over a Jalen McDaniels, for example. And if those relocation threes start hitting, the Raptors are going to be in a space where they have optimal shooting when they run those like Scottie 5 lineups or Pascal plus bench lineups that can be more tenable and allow the bench to actually give the starters a break, because the first few games that haven't been the greatest.
Would you give your body up to a Giannis charge?
100%. I feel I could take a Giannis charge.
You're
One on OP.
you're like big for a regular guy. For chat and people listening, Trey is like 6'3", 6'4" in the middle ground. But that's you're Malachi out there, bro.
I weigh more than Grady. I feel like I weigh more than Grady. Let's see. Actually,
He has really thick calves, man. Like he's not built for a 100-meter dash, which the last time you and I won that race, for what it's worth, listeners.
wait, I'm ready. I'm ready for the tiebreak whenever you are.
This weekend. But anyway, so let's talk about Otto Porter Jr., the man who found his toe. There's a play. Yes, he hits the corner three. That was really nice to see. Yes, he almost hit one where Scottie just had to throw it to him and he had to try and bail him out. It rims out. It's like, damn, it's nice to know, in the heat of the moment, you just toss it to him in the corner. He can get a compelling attempt up. But Otto Porter Jr., offensive rebounding rate, offensive rebounds per game for forwards and wings has been, over the past decade of the NBA, one of the very best. This was something I talked about the moment they signed him, is like, and obviously we didn't get much last year, 8 games, and the Raptors, we all know what happened last year. But Otto, for a team that wants to offensive rebound and get a little bit more shooting from their wings and have a guy who has presence of mind to like, hey, we're running an offense here, let's try and make something happen.
Yeah.
The identification after tipping it out to himself, seeing, I can't remember who came running towards him, if it was Malachi, saying like, no, we're getting this ball to the middle of the floor. We're not keeping it on the side, dribbling it out, knowing he's drawing a guy, just taking that in, leaving it for Barnes, who is in, at that point, the middle of a decent shooting game. The shot goes up. It's a made three to kind of put a nail in the Bucks at that point, who were making a run with a decent stretch of shooting from downtown. So like that presence of mind is always great to see. He only played, like 15 minutes. He didn't come in and completely change the fabric of the game. And like, my goodness, man, I just really liked Otto's minutes. It makes you believe in a better rotation going forward, probably. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Otto's presence like gives you a sense of versatility that keeps shooting on the floor and still maintains size, because he can like both operate as a big and as a wing in certain lineups while being a spacer out on offense. And I think putting him in those type of actions where he's at the top of the key and allowed to make decisions, that's better than putting Jalen where we saw like he was struggling making those decisions the first few games, and allowing him to set the pace, allow the bench to work off of him, and have someone who's going to be able to play, that Scottie's going to be able to play off with, Pascal's going to be able to play off with as well, as long as he's healthy, because shooting on this team is definitely a premium right now, because we have very few. So if he's able to stay in the actual lineup and be a solid wing, he's was on the championship team with the Warriors. He's a top of the line bench wing if healthy. So I'm super excited that he's scaling up to hopefully getting more minutes.
That's what everyone thought they were getting last season. Like he really was, from the hypothetical look at how he fits into the Raptors playing. He was such a wonderful fit with what the Raptors wanted to do. It's like you don't have to sacrifice anything, any of the strengths you love to lean into, and you can get a guy who's going to be a considerably better shooter than anybody you were playing on the wings last season. That doesn't happen. He has to work himself back into shape. We've kind of been saying to, fans who, well, me in particular, like fans who are asking, hey, what's happening with Otto? Like, they're just working him back into shape. It looks good tonight. I was happy with him. And who knows, once things start ramping up, the Raptors start messing around with more lineups, I guess we'll see. But there were a couple transitional lineups that I really liked. Somebody I want to talk about a little bit, Jakob Poeltl. You had a pretty good tweet the other day at the Arsenal Fan TV. It's time to go. Not about Jakob, but kind of talking about. I won't paraphrase or anything. Jakob had a really tough game against, well, just a couple really tough games. What have you made of Jakob flipping the script, and against a front court of Giannis and Lopez really holding it down.
I was super impressed. Like, if there was going to be a game where his struggles were continue, it would have been this with two of the better rebounding bigs in the league. I think it just goes to show that if advantages can be created, Jakob has the ability to finish. When him and Fred were operating together last season, he was a solid finisher in those situations as well. And he's kind of been put in an unfair situation where he's running a lot of these high posts, top of the key looks, where the Raptors are running a split action for, say, Pascal and Jalen McDaniels, where absolutely no movement is being created. That gets busted. They're passing him the ball back in a lot of those situations, and he's not a true threat to take the ball and put it down on the floor and actually score. So it leads to a possession where it's a long Pascal Siakam three, and no actual positive offense is happening. If the Raptors are able to shoot at a respectable NBA level, and get to the rim, I think he's still going to be able to have some of the same success that he had last year.
Yeah. Let me take this opportunity as well, because I've gotten a lot of questions over the past, since the start of the season. 0.5 basketball is not a system. The Raptors run Princeton. They run a ton of dribble handoffs. They run pistol. They run flex. They run a ton of stuff. But 0.5 basketball is not a system. You are not creating any plays out of 0.5 basketball. You could say they're doing continuous screening and passing. It's kind of like this Euro ball type thing. That's fine. But 0.5 basketball is just an ethos that kind of guides what they're supposed to be doing. Work quicker, pass the ball a little bit more, move it along. But there's nothing built out of 0.5. It's just like, for example, I wrote about this in the summer. The very first summer league game, Jared Jack is on the opposing team's bench. He's yelling 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. A lot of coaches preach this stuff. The Raptors in this game, they played quick. The pace was really good, but it wasn't through Jakob as a hub handoffs. They did more high pick and roll because schematically and personnel wise, they had Malik Beasley and Damian Lillard standing on the other side. There was a lot to gain from that. They also went to a lot more low post touches with Siakam, especially in the early going, to get kind of, an idea of what Giannis and Brooks' help principles were. And so the Raptors found something they could attack in this game and went to it more often. So 0.5, because I see people after every game, like after last game, like, why isn't Pascal fitting into the 0.5 system? Why isn't X or Y doing the 0.5? And it's like, that's not what 0.5 is. 0.5 is like a binding ethos, but they still have to run the right play. They still have to run a play that gets a player an advantage. Tonight, they got a lot of advantages from Dennis cooking in the pick and roll. This was Dennis was great in the Minnesota Timberwolves. He had a couple late scores. I think he had 2 threes in the fourth quarter of that game. He was, and his defense was awesome. This game, not only was his defense great, but he was, for this game, really the hub of the Raptors offense. Like, Pascal still took more threes than he did 2-point attempts. The Raptors, like, you made the point that the Raptors, like, getting to the rim, they hardly got to the rim in the half court in this game, but they got to the rim so often in transition. And, like, overall, they didn't get to the rim much, but they shot almost 90% at the rim. It's just being really selective, taking what's there. And so having a game where, man, Dennis can lead your offense is something that you should really cling on to and be happy with. It's not going to happen every game. And this is what I said before, man. I was like, I hope people don't get upset at Dennis when the offense isn't going well.
Yeah.
Nobody in their right mind should ever expect a mid-level exception guard to come in and lead your offense out of the doldrums. Dennis tonight did. You take this game, you tuck that away, you say, hell yeah, Dennis. And then when the other games don't go that well, and he's maybe like not providing a ton of rim pressure, and he's still giving you everything he can, he's burning clock defensively, you remember what it looks like when there's an advantage for him. A lot of what players do is based on what the other team is capable of forcing them into. Pascal was forced out this game. He ended up going 5 of 8 from 3. Last game, it was 0 for 6 from 3.
Yeah.
Sometimes shots go in, sometimes they don't. The Raptors still have things they need to figure out. But for this game, they found the thing they needed to. They kept pressing go on that button, and they exploited it. This was a really fun watch for me. I'm sure people want to talk about Flynn. It's always people on the periphery that there's always like, people are like, hey, what's going on here? There's some people are like, Flynn has a shot. Give
Mhm.
him a stretch. See where this goes. Some people are like, cut it. It's over. Forget it. Do you exist in the middle or on one of the extremes?
It's over.
Jover?
It's Jover. You it's not even the result, it's the process of everything that's happening on the floor. His For 3 seasons now, he hasn't proven to be a good enough shooter to actually manifest like the amount of attempts that he takes. And when he gets into the paint, there isn't necessarily the purpose and the ability to actually finish in the lane. So he isn't actually being able to use his biggest strength, which I think is pick and roll decision making and making passes out of there, because no team actually expects him to score and respects him. So there is no rotation or advantage being created in those situations. And you're putting yourself in a situation where if a guy's into a threat to shoot from three and to drive, he's simply just not being guarded. And the Raptors already are dealing with a situation where they have several players on the court that simply don't warrant actual any attention off the ball. I would much rather those minutes go to an Otto, Grady, guys like that, even giving Jovan Freedom Liberty a chance. Someone who actually has some pop and some spark that with some off the dribble stuff to see what he has. I think we've kind of seen what Malachi can and can't do. And I would much rather put our other players in a better position than maximizing like his backup point guard usage.
We have a comment here that says, "What happened to this team is trash." Something that Trey and I preached before this season was, well, we were asked for our win predictions.
Yeah.
I think we were sitting between 40 and 44 wins
Yeah.
between the two of us. We expected an elite defense, really good transition offense, and a really bad half court offense. This team is tracking almost perfectly to what I thought they would be doing. Scottie has been better than I can imagine, so I'm more positive about this team. And Grady has really applied himself quite well. Pascal, I've been disappointed in the amount of usage and downhill momentum the wings have been able to get consistently in the half court. They're mostly left alone to try and make their money in
Yeah.
transition. And Pascal, he's left some stuff on the board in the half court. I think also the offense hasn't been designed to get the most out of him, and even not at the cost of anybody else. I just don't think it's been very clever. The Raptors, I I feel more optimistic about them now and after last game against Portland too than I did at the start, because Scottie's leap has been so substantial and Grady has been so good. Those are the pillars,
Yep.
like, Jakob is under contract. He's meant to support these guys as they grow. We'll see what happens with OG. We'll see what happens with Pascal. But the guys who you're building around to the future, who determine, because this team isn't going to win a championship now. The guys who will determine kind of the ceiling in the future, who gets paired with them, those guys are trending positively. We talked about Scottie at the front end, but maybe we can revisit it. 8 of 16 from the floor, 4 of 6 from downtown, 12 boards. And just quickly, 12 boards, man.
One of
Again,
those guys. Yeah.
again, 5 on the offensive glass, 5 assists because he's out in transition. It's easy peasy. He's going to get a couple post ups where he gets, the double from the bottom. It's an easy lay down. He's going to have a couple drives in the half court now and again. And like 2 blocks, once again, playing lower in the defense, a steal, 21 points, plus 14. He's having the best year so far of the vaunted 2021 draft class. We're 5 games in, but that is a big deal.
I mean,
This is probably his best 5-game stretch of his career.
yeah, by far. And I expected like a scoring uptick just by like
More
by virtue
possessions,
of
man.
virtue of more possessions, more usage. What I've been like super impressed is the defense. He's an actual force as a rim protector, and he can block shots at the perimeter. He can create chaos in actions. And I think he's found his sweet spot as a low man defender. And Pascal has thankfully beautifully been able to support as a wing defender. And The Raptors defense is the big thing that we've been preaching the entire summer is if they can be a top 5 defense, that's when you look into that we can potentially make the playoffs, because neither of us thought they would be anywhere close to being the 15th or 16th ranked half court offense. They're right now the worst, but I think the shooting will ideally regress positively, and the defense will stay the same because they have Dennis has been absolutely great as a point of attack defender and puts tons of pressure on guys. You saw Dame didn't have the greatest game, and they have really long defenders that give people rough nights. And there hasn't been a game where you said this team is scoring at will on the Raptors currently. They have a really good stretch against several teams. They play the Sixers tomorrow, who Embiid had a great game. I'm really interested to see if they continue to trend up offensively in the half court, if they can get to 95, 97 points per possession. Is that going to manifest into more wins and being more competitive against like the higher scale teams?
Yeah. We saw them beat the brakes off of kind of a hapless Bucks team on the second leg of a back-to-back. The Raptors are in that position tomorrow. And Dennis, after, Dennis, how many minutes he played tonight? 28, not that heavy. He had to spend a lot of that guarding Dame, admittedly, but not that many possessions ran through Dame. You might expect Schroder to be able to give Maxey like another really good go. And like I said, after the 76ers game, even though Maxey went like inferno, I thought that Schroder's defense was really good on him. Sometimes offensive stars make shots. And the same thing with Embiid. I don't think that the Raptors are going to be incredible offensively tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to bring their lunch pail and they're going to bring their defense. And if they play the same matchup, the same style, I don't think that Embiid and Maxey shoot like 60+% on their jumpers, which they did against them in the first round. The Raptors, if they can get out in transition enough and they play good defense, they've got a shot tomorrow. And that's like the guiding ethos of this team is push pace when we can, defend like hell, lean into our greatest strengths, and we'll see. We'll see where it is. And so we have a comment here from David Parkhill. He lost Maxey for open threes far too many times. A lot of Maxey's threes come after somebody collapses the defense. So, like, that's after a rotation. Now, Dennis is a guy who can fall asleep, but also Maxey is a guy who hit, I think, 3 of his threes against the Raptors were pull-ups, and particularly off of pick and rolls where Joel Embiid is his primary screener. There's no shame in getting stuck on an Embiid screen. That is one of the largest men in the whole league. And if Maxey's going to hit a fading to the left pull-up, the only guy in the NBA who hits 3 pull-up threes a game is Steph Curry. If Maxey's doing that against you, if you can, as Dennis Schroder, force Maxey into the Steph Curry performance, then it's just a Steph Curry performance, man. And you just got to you gotta be witness to it. I'm excited to see that matchup because because Maxey was just incredible and I thought Schroder was pretty good, and we'll see if it can swing back to where it's like Schroder had an incredible defensive game and Maxey was pretty good as a response. That's something I just really can't wait to see. From Simon, we have a stat that says Maxey is shooting 91% on catch and shoots. Okay, Trey, this is such a compelling stat. I have to look this up. You got to take over the pod, talk about something while I go poke around on this.
I'm pretty sure he's telling the truth.
No, I'm not doubting it. I just need to confirm.
No, that's okay. I think big things tomorrow, just because I doubt any of the Clipper guys are playing in the game, is if the Raptors can win with their bench and exploit the fact that they're going to be undermanned. I wonder if they're going to respect Maxey enough to start actually trapping. You saw in the last game, they were committed to if he hits the shots, they're going to tip their cap. And he actually did. They put a lot of attention on Embiid. They were pinching really hard on him, and Maxey hit tons of pull-up threes. He was able to maintain advantages that Embiid actually gave them. I wonder if the biggest key would be, he's telling the biggest key is trapping Maxey, seeing if he actually is the point guard that they're trying to develop him in, and make decisions to find other guys other than Embiid. Because I think what I would do is trap and then shade towards Embiid and see and let Tobias Harris decide the game.
So big shout out to Simon for this statistical poll. Maxey has 3.7 catch and shoot 3-point attempts per game. He's hitting 3.3 of them for 90.9%. Now, Maxey is one of those incredible players who we've seen in the past shoot above 40% on catch and shoot threes and above 40% on his pull-up threes. 91% is beyond the pale. Are you insane? 91? That is unbelievable, man. I love Tyrese Maxey. He's one of the best players to watch in the league, but 91? That's cracked. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a listener comment from Nesta. Quote, what are your thoughts on Darko staggering Scottie and Pascal in the first? Loved his rotations tonight with the exception of Boucher and Flynn playing together, end quote. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. We got a great there was good outcomes on two of these lineups, right? So you have Jakob, Pascal, Gary, Grady, and Dennis. They scored 24 points across 30 possessions. They won their minutes, a 7-minute stretch by 9 points, huge numbers, and they had really good offensive process. There was a decent amount of space, and keep in mind we talked about how bad the Bucks were, particularly in the pick and roll defending it this game. That wasn't just for Dennis. They also had trouble containing Pascal in this one in some of those traditional plays as well. So having Gary, Grady, and Dennis spacing out for Pascal and Jakob, those actions was really fruitful. And so that was something that was really great. We also got OG, Chris Boucher, Malachi, Scottie, and Otto, which was an interesting pairing for 4 minutes tonight. And so they had 15 offensive possessions. They scored 10 points. They only allowed 6. They won their minutes by 4. 4 minutes, and that's the thing. Like, these sound like small wins, but over the course of a season, good lineups are built on like, hey, we won the 4-minute stretch by 4 minutes. That's what builds a good lineup. And so to see that stagger kind of go well, like, and then obviously OG was a super big factor in that because you also have Chris, Gary, Malachi, Scottie, and Grady, and they lose their 3.5-minute stretch by 6 points. This isn't a death knell for any of those lineups. This isn't praising them as the end-all be-all. It's loud statistical noise. It's small sample size theater, but there's some nice things to lean into. What did I think about the rotations? I was impressed with the early stuff. I'm excited to see if they're better tomorrow, kind of following tonight's script against the 76ers team that's probably going to try and bust their ass again. Like, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. They got a lot versus the Bucks tonight. Like, they got a lot of easy looks. They got looks to go down tonight that they're probably not going to get to go down as often tomorrow.
It's hard to take a lot of the stuff away from this game just because like everything worked from the shooting they were able to get in transition. They out-rebounded the Bucks. I think this is just a game where you just take it and like remember when we kicked the Bucks' ass early in the season. Tomorrow will be a really good test. If they can slow down Embiid, if they can slow down like a dynamic guard like Maxey, and it's the second night of a back-to-back. If the defense like maintains the level that they have for the last 5 games, they should have a shot, and it should be a close game heading into the last 5 minutes. And if they're able to hit some shots, I would like to see if they can pull out the win and what Scottie and Pascal like manifest in those actual situations, because we've only really seen it in one game in a real close type situation, what type of offense and what's like their money plays that they're going to go towards. We had the ghost screen last year, but we don't have a sense of what that is for Darko. So that's what I really want to see heading into this, not just tomorrow, but this stretch of these really good teams that they're going to be facing. And
also, like, I don't know if they finished up it's 10:25. They might have just finished up the interviews. Because like it's Coach Darko comes in like around 10 minutes after the game ends. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's like 15 to get your first player. Sometimes it's like 10 minutes after that. There's been cases where it's like an hour. It probably won't be, but they're going to finish the interviews. They're flying to Philly right now. Then they got to sleep, and then they got to get up there again. And we watched the Raptors lose to Philly in a game where they shot 53% from downtown. So Philly, the same way that against the Bucks, the same way against basically every team, the Raptors haven't been able to sniff the rim in the half court. If they break through in that way against Philly, I think that is the most tangible process that they can take forward. We'll see if it happens, but this team has really been hanging on to 3-point variance through all these different games, and they have to hope their elite defense, and it's elite, it's going to be elite all year, carries them through like some of the low points and all that kind of stuff. It did carry them against the Trailblazers, like 99 points. That's not a bad defensive performance in 2023. Yeah, it's really good, but they just have to score the ball more. We'll see how it goes. Philly should be a pretty compelling game. I mean, is there anything you're looking forward to? Like, did any matchup kind of pique your interest? Like we talked about Dennis and Maxey. I have to think Precious won't be available tomorrow either. Yeah. They're probably going to give him like a week and a half, 2 weeks, just like let the groin get back good. Because, when we talked to Darko a couple nights ago, he had mentioned that it's lingering from early October. So like groin stuff is pretty finicky. So we're probably going to see it. It's not going to be Precious guarding, Embiid, and Precious has guarded Embiid really well. It might be more Boucher, which that might be tough.
Yeah. I think biggest matchups on our side is who the Sixers decide between Tobias and Oubre, which I'm assuming is going to start with PJ gone, is going to guard their wings, and whether the Raptors can exploit that enough, especially in like low post situations where there's something too big for both of those guys. And if they're able to manifest advantages through those situations, because if you have Kelly Oubre on Scottie Barnes, you should give him the ball 10, 15 times, dominance established in the post. Hopefully that draws Embiid and they can actually create some points out of a quick dump off, 3-point attempts, and Scottie weaponizing his passing from there.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see how tomorrow's game goes. Today's game went really wonderfully. We have from Nesta, how are Scottie's stocks for the season? Over 3.5. He's at 3.4. 2.4 blocks a game, which is absurd. It's insane, man. When I made the Scottie prediction, I was like, man, a block a game is a ton for a guy on the wing. Like, it's heaps of blocks. 82 or whatever the hell, maybe it's a guy plays 75 games. That's a lot of blocks from the wing. Scottie starting out, I think he has 12 on the season right now. Incredible. He's playing lower in the defense. He looks the best defensively he ever has. Yeah. And the steals, he was at 1.1 his rookie season, 1.1 last season. He'll probably hang around there. I don't think he hangs around 2.4 blocks. I think if Scottie is between like 2.2 and 3 stocks, you're like over the moon. And Nesta, as you predicted, like 3.5, when we talked the first game at the Raptors Republic party, 3.5 is super optimistic. But if Scottie does do 3.5, he's going to be an undeniable candidate for an all defense team. Like, especially for the Raptors being this good, those sheer numbers are going to pop in all of the like impact metrics. They're going to pop when, like the 62-year-old beat writer in Cleveland is like scrolling and he's like, who am I going to vote for? What's this look like? He's be like 2.5 blocks, a steal. Like, and maybe he looks at the rebounds too. Like, that's how Andre Drummond gets a defensive player of the year, vote. So yeah, Scottie's putting himself in a really, really good, position. Before we get out of here, most of these streams have been around like 55 minutes to an hour. If anybody has any questions for Trey before we get out of here, feel free to ask him and we'll dive in. But Trey, before we kind of look into reader questions, anything on your mind basketball wise before we get out?
Basketball wise, I would say basketball wise, like if I was to pick an MVP right now, it's probably Luka Doncic. You look at their roster, and you see like where's the big man up? Although Derek Lively's probably been better than anyone's expected.
He's been awesome.
There's not much at the wing, and he's continuing to find ways. Whether teams are trapping him high, whether they're sending help late, he has an answer for every single defense that you can find, and is still producing through those situations and literally carrying their team. I think we're kind of heading into a flow where the Lucas, the Tatums, the SGAs are the ones that are going to be competing for MVPs the next five years, give or take, and the 2010 stars slowly start fading out from like stardom, which is kind of shows how old we are, but really cool to see.
That was my first like, oh, I'm kind of old, was for the longest time when you're watching basketball, you think of prospects as older than you.
Yes.
And then once prospects were younger than me, I was like, oh, this is new, because most of my life prospects are older.
Yeah.
And then once it's been like 5 years of prospects being younger than me, I'm like, ooh, like when I talk to Grady and I'm like, this is a young man. I'm like, ooh, I'm an old man. And when the hairline goes, it hits you a little bit faster. I know you don't have those problems. We got those problems over here. We have a comment from David Parkhill watching Mavs Bulls now. What do you think of Luka's satchel? Haven't seen it, but I'm pro satchel in general. I think satchels are cool. From ND, what are our Gary thoughts? Been kind of sad to watch, LOL. So we had this joke, just personally we talk basketball, we talk every day, and I made this joke about Luka's stash. Okay, I gotta look at this. Wait, while I talk this, please try and go pull up a picture if you can. So anyway, if there's a stash, I'm pro stash as well.
I thought it's a satchel too.
Yeah. It did say satchel, didn't it? Anyway,
I think it was
so anyway, the exclamation point looked like an L. So anyway, we're talking about Gary. Gary, as far as like being a catch and shoot guy who catches in rhythm after Pascal gets doubled, Gary was in such a comfortable spot in last year's offense.
Yep.
He's getting long closeouts from doubles where he can pump and go and find a rhythm jumper. He's getting wide open catch and shoot looks. He just has to form up properly. He just has to shoot. That's all Gary had to do. Offensively was very comfortable last season. This season, there's more onus on Gary to make progressive plays with a live dribble as a playmaker and somebody who is given like the ball to say, hey, move us through an action. He's struggling with that a little bit. And as a result, I think he's a little bit out of sorts as a jump shooter. It'll come back around. He has to find his way. The same way that every player currently is kind of like adapting to the new reality of how the Raptors are playing basketball. But that's kind of my thoughts on Gary. But Gary, yeah, like as far as if this was a year for Gary to bet on himself, if the rest of the year goes this way, he's gonna be like, damn, that's tough. I don't think it will. It's been a bad start for him, but it's also a change of.
Last season, he had a rough start too, and it positively regressed. It's interesting because in the preseason, we both mentioned it's great that he's being empowered with the ball. He's making better reads with the ball in his hands, and now it looks like he's biting a bit too much.
The preseason is the land of Delano Banton, man. Yeah. Don't we know it?
It's rough when he gets the ball in the paint. Right now, that floater that he has is a quality shot, I would say now. But anything outside of that is an inefficient possession once he passes the 3-point line. He doesn't have the lift to finish to finish in the lane as a finisher. We see a lot of these transition possessions because of that. And the shot, for him to be effective, he's heading into the game shooting 35% from three. He can't shoot 35% from three. He needs to shoot 38, 37 to be a tenable player on this team, because he's going to be asked to be the play finisher on a lot of these possessions in order for the Raptors to gain spacing. So it's super important for him to play well. Or there's a chance that Grady or an Otto slowly starts to eat away at his minutes, because the Raptors cannot afford to have their shooters not be able to shoot, because they already have 3 non-shooters playing 30 minutes a night.
Okay. We have a comment I love from Neil B. He says, IQ talk is a dog whistle. I don't want anyone to feel bad if they use the term basketball IQ, but there are people who are trying to transition the term to feel instead of IQ, because IQ in general, like the intelligent quotient, it's rooted in some pretty crazy, race science and stuff like that. So a lot of people are trying to like abandon that. I did a podcast with a neuroscientist talking about feel and like court mapping and neuroscientific chunking and stuff like that. Feel, if anybody wants to kind of make that change from using IQ, that's great. Use feel. Like they have a great feel for the game. They make great decisions. That's really great. And I think it makes more sense in the context of basketball anyway. So I'm never going to be like, you'll hear Chuck and Kenny and Shaq and all of the biggest commentators say basketball IQ. So I'm never going to like, reprimand people, but Neil B is saying something that I think is great. Feel instead of IQ is definitely better, and I think fits the context of basketball talk. What a great way to end this, by me getting up on the pulpit and saying, all this kind of stuff. I'll find one more question and then we'll get out of here. Sam, can you do a comparison of Gary and Grady's off-ball movement? They seem like polar opposite approaches to similar actions. Maybe this is something I'll write a piece about, but just like watching it so far, is that Grady typically finds his space by switching the play, and there's like Gary forms up, whereas Grady makes like these super aggressive cuts through space. Like Gary will float, he'll lift, he'll shake, and like he'll do all that kind of stuff. But a lot of his movement into space is like shuffling side to side. That's how Gary gets open. He's just forming up. It's good. That's what you're supposed to do as a mover. Yes. But like Grady is a guy who's like, I see a spot 40 feet from me. I'm going to go get in that spot because nobody's there right now. And maybe if somebody follows me there, then I dragged somebody with me. And then he's like, and now that I'm over here and they're there, I actually see another spot. I'm going to go see what I can do over there. And while I'm running there, hey, a shot went up. I'm going to tap the board out. I'm going to run back to the spot where I was. I'm open. I've got to look. Tonight it didn't go down. But like that's how Grady finds space. He's covering way more ground than Gary. And so Gary's is like simpler and all that kind of stuff. But my goodness. And Grady's is high level, man. There's a reason like Bobby Webster came out immediately after Grady was drafted. We were at the Raptors Republic party. Trey, we talked about Grady a lot in the lead up. Like we talked to scouts. We did like film dives on him, and we talked about Grady a lot. We were very excited. When his name came off the board with the Raptors, Trey bellows out in that big Messiah's back, like it was a big, glorious moment. So, and then Bobby Webster on the other side is at the OVO Center with some of the more responsible beat reporters that are there, where I was just with my friends watching with the community. And Bobby Webster says, we don't consider Grady like an off-ball player. We consider him in a league of his own off the ball. He is. His movement, very cerebral, terrific feel for the game, tremendously high feel for the sport of basketball. So he does an awesome job. Really, really happy with Grady. And yeah, he moves differently than Gary for sure. And I prefer Grady's style of movement to Gary's, but Grady's is a lot more unique. And, Gary does a good job moving off ball. I don't really have qualms with Gary. It's just Grady is like next level, man. I think over the next little while, we're going to have some really interesting people to come and talk about the Raptors offense over the next. I kind of want to let it simmer for the next like 5 games, see how it's developing, and kind of take it in stride. But we'll have some unique basketball, some people who look at basketball in a unique way, kind of to talk about what the Raptors have been doing. I think that's it for like questions. We'll take Trey. Does that feel like a good place to leave the show?
We did the thing.
Yeah, we did the thing. That feels good. To all the people, I see you repeatedly in chat. Like, I see you every night. I see people who are in here. When I came home from the arena, it's like 1 a.m. You guys hopped on with me. There's a lot more people tonight because it's right after the game. It's not 1 a.m. Just people coming in and spending time with us. Really cool to see. Yeah. We appreciate the hell out of you. It helps us, If you like what we're doing over here, feel free to subscribe at raptorsrepublic.com. That's the paid subscription. That's how you get my written work. If you have the means, we appreciate it a ton. The free subscription, YouTube page, we love that. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers because why not? And before you get out here, like the video because that helps push it to other people who will hopefully end up enjoying this conversation between us. Trey, my brother, anything you want to say?
Please shoot like this tomorrow. I'm begging.
It'd be nice to see. And just as a heads up for anybody, 43%. That's what Scottie's currently shooting from 3 so far this year. That's pretty good. What did he shoot? 29% last year? 13% jump. Obviously, it's probably not staying there, but
yeah, of course.
He makes you think it maybe wouldn't be a jump from 29 to 31, but maybe a jump from like 29 to 34 or 35. That's what it's making me feel like. And he has such a, you can see his handle or not, you can see his pickup change. Like sometimes it's catch high, keep high. And he's kind of like, the guys who come to basketball late in life and they just have such a straight up and down jumper.
Yeah.
He reminds me of that. Like he just keeps it so steady. Like his legs, there's a lot going on. Yeah. But up top, he's just really straight up and down. He has tremendous touch. He's been progressing well. What a start for Scottie. That's a fun time or a fun thing to leave. I see there's a spat going on in the comment section. I'm going to end this thing. So you guys, if you want to make up, you better do it now. Or you guys, you'll be back here tomorrow having the same argument. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. The people who are listening on their walk, the people who are listening currently, whatever it is, thanks for tuning in. My brother, Trey, thank you for hopping on. And whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye. We got